Hello everybody and welcome to this latest blog. It's number 12 now, dated 15th of May 2022. I'm going to start off with a bit of an apology because this one's going to be incredibly rough. I've had some news, not damning, but I'll talk about that a little bit later on because I try to have an order with these things. And we usually start off with the news, but this whole blog is probably going to be very rough. My notes are in a weird order. I haven't done anything run through, not that I ever did anyway, but I usually put my notes in a certain order. So let's start off with the news. The war. Putin has shifted his attention to the east, which strategists have stated could lengthen the war. And there is speculation growing over Putin's health. Not much to say there. I just want this war to be over. I keep it alive because I think it's something that we all should be aware of and not lose track of all of the refugees and the killings that are going on over there. Small one here about food from Sainsbury's boss. He's warned the UK that the golden age of cheap food is over and that 2 in 5 shoppers are buying less on a week-by-week basis. I can't remember a golden age of food shopping. It's always been expensive. It's more expensive now, and you're getting less and less. They're making the packets bigger. That's all that I can say about that. Civil servants are threatening to strike over Boris Johnson's culling of 91,000 Whitehall jobs. Now, if you want to put that in perspective, that's 1 in 5 jobs across the board. That makes you feel that the MOJ is basically not as safe as you think it's going to be, and that adds into my worries at the moment. On some good news, we're going to possibly be in a heat wave. It's a bit overcast today. That's why the lighting in here is not so good. It's up to a possible 27 degrees this week, although there will be thundery showers. Started to sound like Michael Fish. Anyway, and I brought some retro news in because I was looking at some games and so forth, and there was one that caught my eye that looks a little bit like R-Type. It's called Retro Life and it's out May 27th, so not far away now, but I'm balking at the price. It looks a really nice R-Type shoot 'em up type game, which I tend to like because they're pick up and play. It's written by one person, so that's an impressive thing when you look at the graphics and sound in this game. But £15, I'm balking at this. I'm pretty sure that I'll buy it when it's in a sale. I tend to buy things in sales anyway because of the cost of these things at the moment. But if there is one that catches my eye, I do go out and buy it. And as probably most of the world knows, the Eurovision Song Contest was yesterday on Saturday. It is filmed worldwide, shot world and broadcast worldwide. The results, you need to turn away now or shut off, is that the UK, for the first time in 25 years, came second, and Ukrainians won it with 631 points to UK's second place 466. And it was interesting because as soon as I sort of like because I only watched the results, I didn't bother watching the show. Discord, which we all sort of like go to, our little place to chat, a person mentioned that if that doesn't send a message to Russia, what doesn't? And my answer to that was yes. It's basically, who cares that it's political voting? We knew this one was going to be. It's the right time, it's the right message. The thing is, Russia was booted out, and I doubt if anybody in Russia watched it. Okay, so usually I mention a little bit about my news. Now, nothing's happened. I've had my appeal. I wasn't looking forward to it, but I came away very much pondering the worth of all of this, because while we were chatting, my union rep wanted to sort of like summarize a little bit, and he tries his best, you know. I mean, he's talking business law, and I don't know too much about business law. And he basically stated that for this to be a level playing field and the TUPE process possibly being illegal, you can't put time back, and you close the appeal process down. So myself have not had the same rights as anybody else. When I thought about that, I thought how damning that was, because what you've got to think about now is, as a company, the MOJ, who will just probably want this to go away and don't really care about whose mental health this is affecting, which is mine, will probably now just open the doors and say, oh, if that's all that's needed then is to open up the appeal process, we'll open up the appeal process. So I'll then go into an appeals board, they'll present me with jobs that are available there. They won't be managers' jobs, and that will be the end of the subject, because they'll say, so there you are, you've had the same rights. It's not fair. You've got to put time back 10 months. The world outside was different. The jobs out there were different. The MOJ, when they had 3,000 people flooding their HR department to know that these jobs were having to be created over their side of the business to factor in all of these people that were coming in, meant that they would create jobs. You know, oh, if, you know, I mean, I'm pretty sure we could do with an extra person in IT training, or we could do with an extra person here, there and everywhere. The thing they keep saying to me is, we can't create a job for you. And the reason we can't create a job for you is it'd have to be advertised. If it has to be advertised, then therefore that gives a free playing field and you can go for it and so forth. My answer to that is, you created jobs. You had to. You didn't advertise 2,500 jobs 10 months ago. But I've got a funny feeling that this will end badly for me, which is why I'm not caring about my appearance. I'm not shaved today. I just really am down on it all. But let's try and look on the bright side and say, look, there's still a job at the end of this. And I've got a lot of thinking to do, but it's that thinking that's getting me down. Now, usually I talk about what I've watched. Most of the stuff has been on YouTube. There hasn't been much on telly, but I'll mention the one program I have been watching on telly in a moment. So, Retrocore, which is not somebody who I sort of watch too much about, did a little review of something called the Mayu Mini. It's a little handheld. Now, it's a 2.6-inch IPS screen handheld, which comes with a 32 gig SD card for $60. Now, I looked at that and went, that's quite cheap. But I have to look at these things and go, look, no matter whether this thing has got a faster processor, it's the better emulator that's out there, it's got a Linux operating system, all of that, it's a 2.6-inch screen. I wear glasses. The controls are going to be that much smaller. It's there if you want something to travel about with. I'm not traveling about anywhere, so really I shouldn't get excited about it. But retro things get me excited. I like looking at these things, and this thing looked immense. It was absolutely fantastic. It looked really, really smooth in its frame rate. The sound wasn't too bad. It's got a battery you can take in and out. That's fantastic. They're usually closed units at this sort of price. So, yeah, got quite excited about that. Now, what I normally do is I watch all of my friends' channel stuff. There was a couple that I always watch. Mainmeisters is one of them, is Friday Waffle. He's on holiday, apparently. He's had to leave the past, which is Scotland, and go somewhere in the future, London. So I'm hoping he's having a good time. He won't be around this Sunday, so we'll have some time to do ourselves. I'm thinking about playing some games. I might even look at some live broadcasts if people are doing some game streams. You never know. Ponder might do something like that. Go on Twitch, something different. So I might be looking at that. Down the Rabbit Hole did one video that was quite interesting to me because it was retro based, and that is his little look at Space Wars. I think he's got his own machine. It wasn't clear whether this was in his house or whether he was visiting somewhere. But it was an incredibly sharp picture to look and see how Space Wars works. He went into all of the details on why the characters and so forth, like the scoring system has C's and so forth, and that's because of the way it was programmed, because we are talking about a 70s machine here. Very, very watchable. Definitely recommend that you do that. I wanted to get my picture on my TV as best as possible, so I started to look at some of my old watchable channels. HD TV Test, he's a fantastic bloke. He calibrates TVs. Brought out an interesting little snippet of 5 TV settings you must turn off today and should be illegal. And some of them were surprising. I mean, he mentions things that really we should already know. What's the point in using sharpen? If you use sharpen and then you use another setting called color temperature, then you keep the sharpness, and the color temperature also makes changes to other areas, meaning it will probably double the sharpness, and you will get an awful picture. Things will start looking grainy. Things will start looking like cardboard, you know, when you look at the background, which should be slightly blurred. Noise reduction would increase, all of those things. So he's put some recommendations there. I've gone into my TV and basically switched a lot of those off, and to be quite honest, I'm happier with the result. So that was quite good. And as you know, I've started to finish my old stuff, you know, like Abbott and Costello, Laurel and Hardy. And how I usually end me watching these things, and I'll come back to them probably in a couple of years' time, is I wanted to look at the music of Laurel and Hardy, because we're talking about the 20s and 30s. And you think to yourself, where does that music come from? Because sound had just come in, you know. I mean, Laurel and Hardy had the silent 20s. And I didn't realise that there was a person who did all their music called Leroy Shield. Now, I look at this because they use the same stock music in each of the little shorts that they do. There's their famous tune, The Cuckoo Dance. Go and Google that. Everybody knows. But then the stock music has got titles as well. One of them called Bells, which is sort of like tubular bells being clanged. And as soon as you hear those bells and then the strings come in, you go, oh my god, yeah, I recognise this tune. And it's in every one of their shorts. It's really good, and it's bad because from a certain point of view I reminisce about it, and it's bad because it's like a mind worm. All I've got now is Laurel and Hardy's tunes going on in my head. It's a lot like Benny Hill's tunes. Now Benny Hill, you know, obviously everybody has their opinion of Benny Hill, whether he's a sexist or not. I can't deny that I used to love his little speeded up skits that he did, and he used 4 tunes rotated round, one of them being a classical for release, and then there's a couple of other ones, which is Manamana, which sort of everybody knows, and a couple of others, and then they go round. They were used in all his skits, apart from the ones that were set in the 17th century, where he'd start using harpsichords and all sorts of stuff. So that's interesting. If you ever want to go back to that, honestly, you'll look at these things and you'll go, oh, that brings so back memories to me, and then you'll have a mind worm of a tune in your head. So let's. What else did I watch? Yes, I watched a TV show. I mentioned last week, Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, and it was the first episode, and I thought, well, it's Star Trek, should I say? I can't really get excited about this, especially after Discovery and Picard and all of the others. But this one I'm getting quite excited about. I've watched 2 episodes now, and it's more in feeling of the original show than I've come across really in the other shows. And if that is what brings you joy, is that you want the same feel as the old original show, then watch this, because it's getting really interesting, and the stories are almost like what they were back in the 60s, but brought up to speed. I can't say about the music at the moment. I'm still umming and ahhing over that. the iconic theme is just iconic, you know. So you do another tune and you do snippets of this and that in it. You go, well, I can see you've done a nod, but is it in fitting? And I'm not quite sure on that at the moment. So definitely one to watch at the moment is Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and of course we've got Obi-Wan just about to start and a few others, but that's the watching bit. Now let's do my shout outs. So people that have left comments and questions, I always like to give out a shout out because you guys make my week. Don't get me wrong, you make my week. So we've had 8-Bit Steve, Down the Rabbit Hole, Jambon, Robert Morrison, Milfy Swimbuckle, Colin Ferguson, Martroyd, Panther, Stevie Paperboy, Ian Batchelor, and Highlander. And most of them were comments which I've answered. Some of them were questions which I answered in my comments area. I hope I did you justice by typing it out. It's just it gives me a little bit more time during the week to write something and take my mind off of things. I've got questions from Jambon, Milfy Swimbuckle and Panther, which I promised I'd do in the blog. So let's see if I can find the questions down here and can read my own writing. So Jambon put, if I wanted to go back to America, where would I go? And that's an interesting one, because the last time I went to America was at the time where I was thinking of actually moving there. So there came a time where I'd left my first job of 16 years. It ended badly and I wanted to leave this country. I'd had enough. So I was going to move over there. And my qualifications were okay. But there are lots of hoops that you have to go through to live over in America. And one of them is you have to have your job advertised in the paper for 2 weeks, and you have to have a sponsor. And although I had a sponsor, the job fell through. And I'd sold my house and started to move back home, and it turned into a very messy thing where I decided I'd just stay. It wasn't going to work out. And this was at a place called Ohio as a state. And the place that I was going to live was going to be Washington Courthouse, and the place I was going to work was Cincinnati. Hopefully that fills in that. So where have I been in the States? Just about everywhere. I've been to New York, Philadelphia, Ohio. I've been to California. I've been to Arizona, and I've done Route 66. I've driven across Death Valley. But there is so many places to visit, so many. I mean, I think this is in America and not Canada, but Mount Rushmore I'd like to see, probably because of North by Northwest, but it's just one of those monuments where you go, wow, I bet that's impressive. And I think Niagara Falls is in America as well. I don't know. Some of these things are so on the north border that I'm not quite sure of. But I've driven from New York and I've driven to California. And when I've been in California, I've driven to Phoenix and then up to Vegas and then, up to Sacramento and across to Vegas and then down Route 1 back to California and visited all the places in between. And Yosemite Park, El Capitan, is in that structure of California, sort of like triangle. So I've done all of that. So definitely I'd like to see those monuments. I think I'd like to go and see Texas. Florida I've been to, so I should have mentioned that. So it's an interesting one, and I hope that answers the question. Yes, I'd still like to go, and I am one of those type of touristy people that don't just need to go to parks. I like to go and see structures and so forth. Panther asked, what's the best live gig I've ever been to? And that's very, very easy, because I've been to lots of gigs. There's one particular person I've seen more than any other, but we're going to talk about my music likes much later in these blogs. I play piano, work it out. But I did go to Live Aid. I took that train journey and stood in that crowd for Live Aid, and that was hot and horrible, but something I'll never forget. And I went to the Freddie Mercury tribute concert when he died. That was interesting. Don't quite really like the acts. It's more the spectacle and the fact that you've been there. I wouldn't say it's the best gig I've ever been to, but you've got to turn around and say, wow, you went to that? Yes, I did. And of course, I've been to Oasis Nebworth. That was an interesting one. Supposed to be there for 2 days, but I actually only went for a day on that one because I was let down by a person who was going to give me a lift. So hopefully, Panther, that's answered that question. And of course, although not a gig, the War of the Worlds live spectacle is fantastic. And going to the Albert Hall and listening to film music, absolutely spot on, great. They're not really gigs though. That's why I just mentioned them at the end. And Milfy Swimbuckle has asked me the same question as he gave to Mainmeister. Now, I listened to Mainmeister's waffle before this, so I try not to let his answers influence me, but sometimes they're going to match. And I'd read this question before the broadcast of Mainmeister's Friday Waffle, and there was already an overlap. So his question was, what film, TV, music, or game have I been most excited about? Which ones lived up to the expectations and which ones didn't? So you got to imagine that Mainmeister and I are of the same sort of age. And the first thing that came to mind when you put these in order, if you put film, TV, music, game in order, the top one being film for me, you get the same answer, because Mainmeister and I both watched the original Star Wars films at the cinema, 1977, 78, all the way to 82, 83. And when it was announced that they were going to do another Star Wars film, it was big news. Everybody's eyes lit up and go, this is going to be interesting. It's either going to be a pan of shit, or it's, or it's going to be in that middle ground of disappointment and so forth, or with good bits, or it's just going to be, it's going to be absolutely fantastic, and it's just going to live up to our fantastic expectations. I fitted in that middle ground just like Panthers, in the fact that I went there and went, this is not what I was expecting at all, even though I knew it was a prequel. This Jar Jar Binks character, what the hell's all that about? Couldn't stand the Ewoks, so I suppose that's in tandem, to it all, in the fact that there were bits of the original ones that I didn't like, but there were bits that were great, and there were little Easter eggs. The pod race is obviously a great scene. The lightsaber battle at the end, fantastic. So that doesn't really answer your question. So I had to think of a sort of another one. And as you know, look, I'm a Spider-Man fan. Now, Marvel's never had any success in cinema until about 1999, 2000 with Blade. And what you have to remember is, when you're a person like me that's watched cartoons and they've not been particularly great, read the comics and gone, why isn't this a film? What's going on? And you've had the TV shows which have been hit and miss, Hulk being a hit, Spider-Man being a miss. What my expectations, therefore, 2 years, because there was an announcement that Spider-Man was finally being made, and there was a teaser trailer 2 years before the film came out, and I've still got that teaser trailer as a video clip on this computer. Spider-Man was super high expectations for me, and pretty much 90% of it lived up to my expectations. There were bits I didn't like about it. You can never have a film that's perfect. You're going to have that. So that lived up to my expectations. When it comes to TV, I've watched so much TV, it's difficult to say what my high expectations are. There have been mainstays like Doctor Who through the years, where the Doctor is about to change, and as we know, there's been news this week about the Doctor changing again from Jodie Whittaker now into another diversity character, black, gay. Doesn't bother me too much, any of that sort of stuff. It doesn't knock me for six like it would have done. But whenever there was an old Doctor about to leave and a new Doctor about to start, back in the 70s and 80s, and when it was relaunched, that was exciting times. But I think the most excitement I had was when I was really downloading and watching TV before it was over here, would have been Star Trek The Next Generation's end of season 3 episode, which was called Best of Both Worlds. Because while they were broadcasting the first season, I was up to the second and third season. And when that came out and there was this new menace, the Borg, and Picard had got captured, and at the end he mentioned he was robotized and mentioned one of the characters on the bridge. That was a shock moment, because it meant that they know all of his strategic strategies and so forth. So, and it turned around and all you had was one of the bridge crew saying, fire. In other words, don't care who's going to blow up, fire at this ship, we've got to do. And then you had to wait 6 months before the next season was going to go. And I'm going, Jesus. And the expectations of the next episode were so high. It was like, oh, I've got to wait like every bugger else. It was atrocious. I don't have anything for music. I've never had really high expectations of a new person, an old artist bringing out a new album, a soundtrack, because I'd be excited about the film, and if the soundtrack was good, then great. And I think everybody knows the game one, which is the disappointment of Rise of the Robots. What a piece of shit. I can't get over the fact that I got built up by all the magazines. I went and got it day one. The person must have seen me coming and said, we do a special deluxe edition with a mouse mat for an extra £5. Collared me for that. Took it back. Loaded it up. Crap. Absolute crap. And it's really hard to think of one that's good, because there have been so many good ones, but I've played so many games, it's hard to pinpoint one. So it'll bound sure to be a PC game, because every 8-bit game I got excited about when it was coming out. So I think that covers all of that. We then do some things that I found. I've just been through boxes this week, trying to take my mind off of things. I think we're going to end the Laserdisc ones this week. So I've just brought out a couple of final ones. So if we had Alien as a box set, you know that I had Aliens, and we've talked about that previously before. The Laserdisc offered so much compared to the VHS that I had to have that. So I had Alien and Aliens in the box set, which is quite an expensive thing to fork out for. And I have to mention these next two, Jurassic Park and The Lost World, because there's nothing really special about these particular Laserdiscs, but it's the time that I bought them. So I had these pretty much as close to when it was out at the cinema. So I went to the cinema to see Jurassic Park. I went to see the earliest showing. I walked home humming the tune. Went into town the next day, bought the soundtrack because I really liked it. And literally within a month, America had got Jurassic Park out on Laserdisc. And it was an instant buy. It was like, great. And all my friends came round while it was still being shown in the cinema. Watching it round my house on my Philips 32-inch widescreen TV. Magic memories. Loved it because people were coming round to see me. We were watching a film and it almost was like the cinema at home. I'm going to do something different now. I don't talk about games too much. And it's a sad thing in the fact that most of my interesting stuff is in storage. I looked in the garage where I'm at the moment, and it seems what I did when I moved my house down here was I put all of the computers and consoles and everything that I didn't think I'd want to get out much anymore in storage, along with certain games. And then the stuff that I use all the time, PCs, handhelds, all that sort of stuff, because of space, I kept. So so when it comes to the PC, all the big box games are here. But when you're talking about my Atari 800, my Commodore 64, my only Amiga, my 1200 is there. They're all in storage, and most of the games are there. So, but saying that, here is probably the earliest PC game I ever bought. Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, in Super VGA graphics, 256 colours. And I don't know if I can get this into shot, but you will see there that it requires a faster machine, 286, 386 recommended. IBM Tandy, 100% IBM compatible, and it comes on 5¼ inch discs. I did move those over to 3¼ inch floppies, so you can still play it. Look at the back, and if you look, it's got IBM VGA at the top, IBM EJ in the middle, and there's an Amiga version. Now, I don't know if I've seen the Amiga version of this when I was looking at this box. In fact, after I close this down, I think I'm going to look and see whether I've got Star Trek V on the Amiga. I didn't know it was there. So, interesting. Everybody in the world has probably got Doom, but I think a lot of people got it public domain. This is the boxed copy. So that's interesting, so I thought I'd show that. One of the first Bullfrog games I got was Magic Carpet. Look at the size of these boxes. My God. This one says includes 3D glasses. I don't know why. I don't think it was in 3D. I don't know if it's because there's a comic or something in there. But I have very, very happy memories of Magic Carpet, even though there's not much to the game. And somebody in Discord said, what's SimCity 3000 like? I remember 2000 and I remember the latest one and so forth. I must have skipped one version of it. Well, that's the box to it, SimCity 3000. They always come in lovely boxes, these. This, I think, is a gatefold. Yes, there we are. Look, so it's a gatefolded box. And obviously, the graphics you can see were so much more superior than SimCity 2000. But to me, SimCity 2000 was the game to play. So I've started to talk about games, and I think I'm going to do that a little bit more, because those big box games brought me so much joy when I was going through them. I found other ones that I won't mention too many titles, but I didn't bring out things like King's Quest, Leisure Suit Larry, which I've got on disc and CD, and I didn't bring out things like The Seventh Guest. They're there, but they're not terrifically exciting to look at, but they will evoke memories in certain people, and I'll never forget that. And I might talk about those another time. So now we're going to talk about the soundtracks. Now, I haven't got too much to show you this time, but I wanted to talk about Silver Screen quite quickly. So this is just a bog standard cult TV classic theme tune type thing. You can see on there that there's the Tomorrow People, Stingray, Captain Scarlet, Joe 90, all that. Silver Screen, they meant an awful lot to me, because a lot of the scores that I wanted to listen to when Silver Screen were bringing out were classics. And some of the TV stuff that you bought from other companies were the Cincinnati Pop Orchestra or so forth. These were the actual recordings. So when you've got things like Lalo Schifrin, Jerry Goldsmith, Neil Hefti, who did the Batman theme, Barry Gray, this back in the day was the way that you listened to the actual themes as they were recorded. So this one brings back quite a lot of memories, and Silver Screen also like to do linear notes. But now I want to talk about something that Hollywood does an awful lot of, and they still do it now, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad, and I'm in two minds about it. Okay, what they generally do is they do this first issue of a soundtrack like this, Forrest Gump, which was 2 CDs. And when you look at it, it's all the tunes that were in it, apart from the last track, which is the Forrest Gump Suite by Alan Silvestri. And you go, well, there are certain tunes in there I like, so I'll buy it. But the one that we really want if you're into soundtracks is the actual score, and the score always comes out later. It never comes out at the same time. And then when they bring it out, they then do a special edition or expanded. So you end up having 2 versions of the same film and all the music that's from it. And I think it works, and I think it doesn't work in the fact that sometimes I do not want the Top Gear tunes, sorry, the Top Gun tunes. I want the score. And everybody's got the single from Top Gun, you know. And, so what do I want all the other tracks there that nobody can even remember? Weird Science is another one where everybody remembers Oingo Boingo and Danny Elfman's band and the main track, and the rest are all teenage rock bands that never went anywhere. So of course I want the score. And that brings to the end. And I think I've gone over again. Just thanks everybody for listening to my crap. And I'm so sorry that I'm down all the time. I don't see a good future at the moment. Maybe we can turn this all around. Maybe things will turn out better than I'm making out. 10 days from last Thursday is when I'll know, or earlier. So thank you very much. Please keep those comments coming. They do keep me focused. And hopefully you found some entertainment in this, and all the time my gratitude. Goodbye.